You're listening to Errol Parker and Clancy Overall, editors of the Batuta Advocate, on Desert Rock FM.
Hello, listeners, and thank you for tuning in again and for joining myself, Errol Parker, and my colleague, Clancy Overell.
Yes, hello, listeners, inside the Diamantina Shire or otherwise. You're listening to Desert Rock FM. For the podcasters across the country and world, thanks for tuning in. This is the editors of the Batuta Advocate for another week on the Batuta Advocate News Hour.
Yes, a very special mention to those listeners in Uganda last week that our producer Murray managed to spot on our analytics.
Yes, hello, if you were listening in Kampala, which, funnily enough, is relatively nearby to where today's guest hails from.
That's right, Clancy. Close enough if you've got your level of education. He's a notable Australian, plays rugby union, and he also hails from the African continent. He's a Zimbabwean-born boy by the name of David Pocock.
And he's not your average sort of rugby player, is he, Errol?
No, Clancy, there's a little bit more to him than just scrums, rucks, RM Williams, boots, puffer vests, and private schools.
Yes, there certainly is. I've heard the name David Wocock bandied around a few times, stemming from his social and political activism. Many people have referred to him as woke.
I mean, well, he has been arrested before for what he believes in, as a lot of footy players are these days, but I think that David gets arrested for much nicer things, not assaults or drug possessions or drink driving. He gets arrested for things that he believes in, like environmentalism, social issues, I should say, and I think he got caught that time. He chained himself to a digger protesting some coal mine down south.
Yes, he's done a few little things like that, have angered News Corp commentators in the country. He's a little bit naughty, a little bit co-curricular outside of the footy field, and was a very vocal supporter of same-sex marriage.
Yeah, our sports editor Imran Gashgori, he wrote a fantastic think piece about his stance on that issue, didn't he, Clancy?
Yes, that was a quite a popular story, went viral briefly there. It was just after the plebiscite was passed, and of course David Pocock and his partner Emma had vowed to not get married until everyone could get married. Of course, we wrote the article shortly after. David Pocock begrudgingly begins Googling Canberra wedding venues following the changing of the laws.
He and his partner Emma famously pledged in 2011 that they wouldn't be tying the knot until their gay friends were allowed to do the same. And after the vote passed, Pocock, like a fair few other straight men who also made that pledge, were all out of excuses to take a knee.
Mind you, his actual knees may have also gotten in the way, judging by the amount of operations he's had on his body over the years. He really puts himself to the test physically on the field and off the field, apparently.
Yeah, his ACLs have seen more daylight than most earthworms, Clancy. Anyway, the Brumbies captain, he said it was a very tricky task Googling non-coal seam gas-affiliated pro-same-sex marriage Zimbabwean wedding caterers in the ACT area, and he apparently still hasn't locked one in. But we can ask him that in the flesh now. He's just walked in. David, take a seat.
Well, here we are with an institution of Australian sport, a well-known Australian personality, I guess you could say, commentator at times. He's actually just walked in with some gifts for us. David Pocock, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, mate, what brings you to town? Well, what brings you up here into the middle of the Simpson Desert?
Yeah, it was a fair drive to get out here. I was keen to bring you boys some biltong. It kept me going on the trip, the Barbo biltong.
I made the mistake of referring to it as jerky before, but it's not even dehydrated in the same way that jerky would be, is it?
It's air-dried.
Air-dried beef.
Air-dried beef. And what... beef, all right? So it's not any exotic African land animal. It's
No.
just a domestic livestock. Well, we'll be getting into that a bit later.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about that trip. Are you back and forth now? Have you gone back to Zimbabwe, South Africa, that part of Southern Africa since your sabbatical over there?
I went back for 3 days during Super Rugby just to see my grandfather was pretty ill. So just a quick visit.
Right.
Spent a few days with him, then came back.
Can you tell us a little, since you migrated to Australia, how many times would have you visited your family and stuff over there?
After we moved, I didn't go back for quite a few years, and then once I started playing professional rugby and could afford to, I tried to get back once a year.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've still got family and friends back there, and was involved in some community development stuff. So yeah, love getting back there for a couple of weeks. But I'd never actually been back for more than I think 2 or 3 weeks. So last year having 6 months there was very interesting. It was kind of right at the end of the Mugabe era in Zimbabwe, so things were pretty dire. And it was a bit of a reality check. Definitely got back to Australia with a deeper sense of appreciation and gratitude for what we have here and the opportunities.
I can hear it a bit now. I often find that when I go back to my native Hong Kong, I tend to slide back into more of that international accent. When you get back to Zimbabwe, do you find yourself starting to slip back into your old tongue that you get when you're going up there?
Yeah, I think I probably do. Yeah,
Go
for
back
sure.
to sounding a bit like Percy Montgomery. Yeah.
You see with the Kiwis, they do it more than anyone, don't they? When they go back home.
Yeah, we often, in the conversations we've had with Quade, both in Brisbane and in Auckland, there is a big difference there. I've noticed.
Even seeing Quade down at Ballymore compared to seeing Quade down at South Rugby in Brisbane, there's a difference in the accent.
Quady. Yeah, he's a good man.
Now we'll get straight into rugby. All right, you guys have found a bit of momentum this year, but there is something that's happening right now which people can't really understand. Is it Quade, who we just mentioned, is just playing park footy? Do you think this is all a part of a plan, or do you think this is a bit of a mix up between Super Rugby and the Wallabies?
I'm not sure. I don't really know the ins and outs of it. Yeah. I guess he was told by his Super Rugby coach that he was no longer wanted, and they still have to honour his contract. And he's chosen, rather than going overseas or moving elsewhere, to play in the local club rugby comp. So great for Brisbane club rugby. For the Reds, they're obviously still paying him. So I'm sure they'd be trying to move him on. But I guess it's up to the player.
Never seen someone playing first grade in Premier Cup on that kind of money. That's it's brilliant to see. But how are you feeling about the team right now? Are you finding your feet, and do you feel like the team's got a bit of momentum?
I'm enjoying being back.
Yeah,
it's amazing how much changes in a year in rugby. So many new faces, a lot of young talent coming through. So I think the Irish series in June was, we took some steps. We were pretty disappointed to fall short and not win it, but they're a really good team. So I guess the challenge now is to move on to the Bledisloe Cup and the challenges that poses, and obviously the Rugby Championship.
So how's the training going for the Bledisloe? I mean, there's been lots of people coming and going since the end of the Irish series. How important is it to especially as we used to see with the Wallabies, 20 years ago, how they picked a team and they just tended to stick with it. Like you had a very core sort of leadership group. How's that been in the lead up to the Bledisloe? Like, have you been working to really get the team tighter?
Yeah, it's always a bit strange this time of year because some Super Rugby teams are still in finals.
Yeah.
So it's basically everyone who isn't playing finals, they get them together and pretty much flog them Monday to Friday, send them home for the weekends until everyone's back from Super Rugby. So it's been good. There even some new faces, guys who've done well during Super Rugby, and I guess that's the hard thing as a coach is you've got to be picking your best players at now, but also planning for next year and the years after, when a lot of your senior players may either move on, retire, or injury. I mean, injuries are a huge part of the game these days.
Yeah, because you've got the captain now, Hooper is he's 26 and he's kind of in the middle. Like, he would be a middle-aged kind of Wallaby now, wouldn't he? He'd be.
Yeah, Hoops would be one of the more experienced now. He's incredibly durable. He's played so many. I don't think he's missed too many.
80-odd caps he's got now, I think.
Yeah,
he's been a real stayer. Now, David, you've had a pretty conventional path for a footballer. You came from playing pretty high level. Did you play schoolboys? You played Aussie schoolboys?
Yeah, I played schoolboys.
And then you went and Western Force at 18. I mean, a lot of the big names that we've seen over the years have kind of gone that way. And a lot of those guys have actually, at some point, gone off the rails or gotten into trouble or had to, jet down and play somewhere else, or have just decided to play somewhere else. What kind of kept you on track playing footy in Australia, other than the sabbatical we just mentioned over there in Zimbabwe? What do you think you put it down to?
I think I've been really lucky with the support that I've had from family. Obviously moved to Perth away from family, but I've got two younger brothers, and they always tend to keep me pretty grounded.
Humble you.
Yeah. Make sure I don't get ahead of myself. And I think the key for me has actually been making friends outside of footy. Yep. It's something that I love doing. It's been a huge part of my life, but I know in the grand scheme of things, it's probably not that important. And there's plenty more to life than chasing a ball around. So, you can give it everything while you're there, but to have friends outside of rugby who probably aren't that interested in it, and it probably helps that my partner knew literally nothing about footy when I met her.
Yeah. Now I remember hearing that, and in fact, she almost applied a bit of a stigma to you as just a meathead footy player. And when you first met, I remember seeing in the story, she you had to prove to yourself.
I was definitely in that category. Yeah.
You had to prove to her that you were open-minded kind of guy. You're into gardening and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's stereotypes, and there's probably stereotypes for a reason. Not all guys are like that, but there's definitely something to it.
Has she caught up a little bit?
Yeah, like say, for example, would she be able to tell the difference between you and Richie McCaw, how you tend to come in from the back of the ruck and Richie tends to come in from the side?
Mate, she could probably tell you a bit about the breakdown. Coming in through the gate and staying on your feet and all that kind of stuff.
Truck and trailer.
Yeah.
Now, you've had a different kind of series of kind of scandals in your career, I guess, as well. None of that late night shit that would warrant you jetting off to Japan or south of France or rugby league. But you have had scandals. Some of them quite recently. I guess scandals are a word the media would use. The mainstream, rotten Murdoch types would say that. We would say incidents. Tell us a little bit about the time you handcuffed yourself to a digger in Liverpool Plains, was it?
Yeah.
Down there
Lead State Forest.
Yeah. Tell us. Can you just tell us how you got into that issue? You kind of how you first that first kind of sparked your attention, and what led you to being arrested that night?
How come you were there and not a local boy like Sam Carter? How come he wasn't handcuffing himself to a big bulldozer down there on the Liverpool Plains?
He must be pro coal.
I grew up on a farm, so I guess that's a big part of my history and moving to Australia and learning more about climate change and what a lot of the scientists are predicting. Mm-hmm. And that's obviously going to affect farmers potentially more than your inner city residents. Yeah. They're totally dependent on the climate. I guess I thought it was a really important issue, and had been part of. You go to your protests and you sign petitions and you do all the rest, but politicians haven't seemed that keen to actually show some leadership and do something about it. Mm-hmm. And I had a few mates who were involved in the lead blockade. So basically planning a coal mine in the middle of a state forest.
These are some of those mates that you said you made outside of sport?
Yeah, one or two of them. Yeah, good fellas, really good fellas. And I guess it's a coal mine, in a farming area. There were some really questionable things around the approvals process, as seems to happen, and a whole bunch of people from Canberra went up for a weekend to show support. And I hadn't really planned on getting arrested and doing something like that, and met Rick Laird, who's fifth generation farmer. Got chatting, and I guess for me, I could see if my dad was an Aussie farmer, it'd probably be pretty similar. Mm-hmm. Head of the local, rural fire service, and just a real good fella. Mm-hmm. And seeing the impact that it was going to have on his family, his land, his community, and as Aussies, farming seems to have this real place in our sort of mythology,
nostalgia as well. Yeah,
but we don't give him much. Like, we don't really stand up for him. And got to the point where we were chatting, and he'd never been arrested for fear of, he's an upstanding citizen. And we both kind of said, well, if you're willing to, I will. And so we left at midnight and walked through the state forest and got onto the mine site, climbed up a super digger and locked on for the day. And I guess for me, the mine went ahead. We didn't stop it, but I think it raised some awareness of the plight of people like Rick, who are going to be, one, affected by the mine, being 4Ks from his kid's school, affecting the water table potentially, but then also the long-term implications of us continuing to build coal mines against the advice of people who've been studying this stuff all their lives. So,
can you tell us about the movements after that? And you probably, you're still very much involved with the club and the Wallabies. So you don't have to say too much. But were you in trouble, or was it kind of they put that down? Similar with Israel in the last few months. So it was kind of like, this is what he feels. This is what we're going to allow him to.
How'd the coach take it? Because I'd be interested to see what old Checker had to say about that. When he got the phone call in the morning.
I don't think he was too fussed.
No.
I copped it. I actually had a warning letter in my email before I'd been processed at the police station, which was interesting. So they weren't happy. I guess the usual bringing the game into disrepute. That was the line, and I think it's something that I feel is really important, and you guys are a bit older, but my generation and future generations are going to cop a changing climate, and I think more and more people are going to need to stand up and say, we do want a leadership on this issue, we do want things to change, we do want a livable planet in the future.
Now, we just touched on Izzy then. Israel Folau has been popping off throughout the year with and with actually, David, you made a point early on before gay marriage was even legalised. Marriage equality had come into play in the laws of the land. You hadn't gotten married until that point. We actually wrote about it. You kind of.
I'm still looking for a Zimbabwean fair trade, ethical, locally sourced
wedding planner. Yeah. You actually, the pressure's on now. You got to get properly married.
No more excuses
now that everyone can. But so that was something that you'd spoken out about before, and since the actual plebiscite and the subsequent changes in the law, now a teammate of yours is saying the opposite. Can you tell us a little bit about the dynamic? You guys can actually leave that and play football and work alongside each other, because that is impressive. If that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, I strongly disagree with his views on it, and feel like what he's said is really hurtful to a lot of people in our community. I guess it's hard to hate people up close, and when you actually spend time with people, you don't have to agree on things, but you can. I guess you've got a lot more in common than you have differences, and you've got to acknowledge that humanity and hopefully be able to have civil conversations about things that don't just turn into mudslinging and the polarizing, ugly debate that we seem to have on a lot of issues that are really important for our community to have. And I grew up in a sort of conservative religious community and family, so I can understand where he's coming from on this. Doesn't mean I agree, but I've probably had teammates who really disagree with me on environmental activism.
Single-use plastic bags, etc.
Yeah. So, a whole range of issues. So there's it's a pretty diverse group. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think as long as you can keep talking about these sorts of things, you leave space to hopefully actually debate things and move forward a little bit. Whereas I think as soon as you just take your position and are unwilling to even engage with people who aren't in your tribe, we definitely lose something, and I think it really stagnates the debate and where we potentially could get to.
Yeah, do you think it's a bit of a distraction though when the media tends to focus on things like this? They're asking these guys who have to follow a ball around for 80 minutes about these very vast and complex issues when they should be asking them how they're going to get the big earn back from the Kiwis, or how we're going to get the little one back from the Kiwis as well next year in Japan, as opposed to asking Izzy what he thinks of the Bible and gay marriage. How much do these things distract the team, or do they even distract the team at all?
Yeah, well, I think it can be an issue when young guys or anyone's having to answer questions, around theology and eschatology and all these sorts of things because of someone else's point of view. I think guys generally deal with it fairly well. Mm. It's an interesting one. It
is an interesting one because there's a lot of people that would say things like, why the hell do we care about Israel Folau's opinion on where gay people are headed when they die? But then again, also, there's a lot of people that are interested in your opinion, and you probably get asked your opinion on everything, on every kind of political issue, because you've proven yourself as someone who's you look into things and you join different movements. What else has been going on over there in that you were doing over there? That wasn't necessarily political, but you were starting up a not-for-profit program in
80/20 vision.
Yeah, so I'd been involved with that since 2008, I think, 8 or 9. Mm-hmm. And we handed over to a bigger NGO last year. Mm-hmm. The fundraising side of things is a bit of a hamster wheel. Yep. And we had a bigger NGO who liked the project, wanted to scale it up, so we were very happy to hand it on. Yeah, trying to get into a slightly different approach, working with a sort of value chain approach where you're actually trying to connect rural farmers to markets. Yep. I guess so much of the aid stuff that you see in Australia is sort of verging on kind of aid porn, where you're trying to paint these people as these helpless who they desperately need your help. But the reality is that a lot of these people are far more resourceful and resilient than you and I. Mm-hmm. And if you can simply allow them access to a good market, which they often get excluded from because they're rural and they don't have the comms and I mean, all that stuff's improving with mobile technology. But if you can provide them access to markets, they then actually spend that money on health, education, food and water security, all these things that billions have been spent on for decades. So I think it's a real emerging area, and there's some people doing some really good work in that area. So we're doing a small thing there. It's not much at all, but it's been interesting to learn.
How do you fit it all in? You obviously you took a year there to do what you were doing, but you charity work, playing for two teams. You're playing rep and playing super football. Are you flat chat? Not to mention your incredible garden that we've seen photos of.
It is looking dreadful at the moment. Right. I've really let it go. Since getting back, I think I've grown maybe 3 or 4 tomato plants. That's it. So
Costa would be disappointed.
He would be shattered.
How
the great man going? Costa. The hens are laying, actually. They had a bit of a rough winter, but now that the days are getting longer, 5 eggs every day.
Right.
So
that's that's doing all right, at least.
Yeah.
What's your diet like? Are you on the kangaroo meat? Are you on the egg whites? What's going on? Because you're looking pretty jacked right now. The biltong.
Yeah, biltong. Barbell biltong.
I'm going to crack it open, actually. Medium flavour.
It's the good stuff. I've actually played around with my diet a fair bit over the last few years.
You had paleo for a while?
20...
Or the Atkins diet.
No activated almonds, but
FODMAP.
Yeah, what is this FODMAP thing?
This is good. It's a really hard
fermentation something. Okay. Well, yeah, just playing around. I guess coming through rugby academies and stuff, it was drilled into like low fat is good, high carbs, all that kind of stuff. And then I had 2 ACL injuries in a row, and after the second one, I was just looking at ways to, I don't know, experiment with diet, see what helped with inflammation, and got onto some of the stuff that Tim Noakes is doing in South Africa, and so I've been experimenting with some high fat, low carb stuff,
Right.
Which has been really interesting. Yeah,
Yeah, FODMAP's an interesting one now. It's the it's fermentation, fructose, and
I don't know.
it's just things you wouldn't think are related.
okay.
Yeah,
I think it's more like
just
talking
like the
about
royal families in Europe.
Well, I guess it's an area where we've been so locked into this food pyramid thing for so long, and
had milk like second from the top for a while there, dairy,
Yeah.
yogurt and shit.
yeah, that was all based on one study that they did that linked saturated fat to heart disease.
Yeah.
And a lot of that's being undone through the research, and even that research is being proven to be fairly not dodgy, but I guess selective in the data points that they chose. So yeah, it's a really interesting area, and I don't know, something that's I enjoy just mucking around with and seeing what works for me.
Well, as much produce as you can make yourself as well, I guess.
Yeah,
From your
that's
garden.
definitely enjoyable, and I think that's living in town, having a garden allowed me a bit of headspace. Like it was a bit of time away, particularly when I was injured. Just getting away from it.
Yeah. How do you feel about the nickname Wocock?
Pocock. I don't know. It reminds me a bit, Morning Glory kind of.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So,
yeah. Well, all right.
It's an interesting one.
It's probably been thrown around in your younger days, but nowadays there's a different meaning, more to your open-mindedness and and in fact,
As in like woke.
yeah.
Wow. I'm not down with the lingo, the Batuta lingo.
Yeah, as an intersectional feminist environmentalist Wallaby captain, it's a first.
Yeah, the one thing I'd like to ask you now is about your time in Japan. You moved over there after a bit of a break. What was it like to get back into rugby in a place where you'd never played rugby before? As like on the whole,
It was such a rude shock.
yeah.
Oh man, I'd done some training, obviously trying to get back into it, but those first few team sessions, fitness sessions, I was just thinking, what am I doing? Like, this is insane. And I'm so grateful that I actually came back through Japan rather than coming straight into Australia, because the level is definitely a notch up in terms of volume and intensity for Super Rugby. But was at a really good team in in Japan they call it was in Ota, Gunma. Gunma is the least visited prefecture in Japan.
Is that
So not
up
a lot
the top or the bottom?
It's about 2 hours, I think, north of Tokyo.
Some good
And
good gardens out that way.
Amazing. But I mean, they call it rural, but it's honestly just industrial sprawl.
Really?
Panasonic factory, Subaru factory, all these other factories. It was really interesting, sort of living in kind of working class Japan, playing rugby for a good team, which certainly helped. That the load on me was not that high. I probably missed every, I don't know, third or fourth game. Just got rested, so really enjoyable way to get back into it.
And what's the go like now for expats playing rugby in Japan? Are you given an interpreter, or is interpreters around, or can you speak Japanese? How did that all go down?
I think almost all teams would have an interpreter.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess you learn the basics. The interpreter's not there on the field, so that's when it gets interesting. But mate, it's footy. Like you can usually tell what someone's getting at in a huddle, or gesturing, or it was a really cool experience.
What one question I want to ask is the culture of rugby in Australia is changing right now, and there's it's obviously going through a new revamp. There's a lot of things happening. There's Twiggy Forrest doing all this shit over there, and there's
In Perth, you mean?
There's momentum, over there. Can you tell us about a rugby culture that you've seen that you just think is like in terms of a nation.
That's not New Zealand.
That's not New Zealand. That is Japan like that? Do they just impress you with their
love of the game?
Their love of the game, or is there other ones that surprise you, like Argentina? Yeah.
I think the World Cup in Japan will be amazing. They know how to put an event on, and there's a massive population. So
they'll get it done in time. It's just Japan, right?
And they'll turn up to support. Seem to get really fanatical about supporting teams. So I think that'll be really cool. In terms of places that surprise you, playing in South America, just the passion is always amazing. Or even actually playing in Italy, the national anthems there. Yeah. It seems to go for about 10 minutes, and it's just I don't know what they're saying, but it's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, right. So you find that Perth has that. Perth is staunch, which kind of was a surprise. The fan base at the Western Force coming out in numbers, so it was a shock to see what happened to that team. And obviously that came from the top. What do you remember about being part of that infantile Western Force setup when you went over there?
Yeah, I loved the opportunity. I loved my time in Perth. I ended up spending seven years there.
Right.
Yeah, straight from school into sort of a new club. They were, I guess you're trying to establish culture and get a bunch of guys who've never played together, and a coaching staff who've never coached together, heading in the same direction. We had one win in our first year, which was pretty epic. But yeah, the support from the community there was big. There's a lot of South Africans.
I was going to say that you
a lot of Kiwis.
Had a lot of.
So the local club comp is definitely getting stronger.
Heaps of Poms there too in there.
Yeah, a lot of people pecking for Perth.
I'm interested to hear, as an experienced side member of the squad, what the word is at street level about this comp that Twiggy Forest is trying to get up and running over there and in South Africa and parts of Europe. How is that being received by you guys?
I have to be honest and say I don't know much about it at all. I think that this whole thing has really galvanised the supporters of the Western Force, and they're getting great crowds to their game. They seem to have recruited a fairly decent team and will be going for the next couple of years. And then I don't know when the Super Rugby, I think the rights agreements or the broadcasting thing comes up after next year, maybe 2020. So then I guess it's negotiating and who knows that there's other people who know a lot more about that than me.
A bit like the XFL. Twiggy's a bit like Vince McMahon starting up his own XFL.
Well, there's been more developments too in rugby union that we've certainly read down there in Sydney, where you've got a bloke who's come along and he's bought the television rights to the Shoot Shield down there, and they're trying to get that on as much free-to-air television as possible. I think from what we've heard in the media that there's been a bit of a disconnect now from what rugby was 20 years ago when, the Eels heyday, we had old Bill and everything was fine and dandy. Do you think that moving forward more of these Super Rugby games need to be made available on free-to-air television so it kind of enhances the exposure that the sport has? Because it's hard to compete, really. I mean, there's lots of different codes, and I suppose that
as long as it's not an Optus Sport,
been running in
the NBN's coming, mate. Don't worry.
Yeah, free to wear has got to help. Yeah, and it was free to wear for most Australians growing up until recently. You would have got the Channel 7 or the Channel 10 kind of match.
Yeah, well, I mean, growing up, we never had Foxtel, so we'd watch Wallaby games on free to air, and I do think it's important to grow the game to have it on there. Those decisions, way above me.
Yeah, it's interesting to see though that the rights to broadcast the World Cup next year haven't been snapped up yet. So I'd be interested to see where they end up.
Batuta Broadcasting.
Batuta Broadcasting.
You guys could probably...
We could do it. Yeah, we'll move into a telco company first, and then we'll stream everyone at the same time.
Probably
it'll be
contract
like
Roy and HG to
they could
do a couple of games.
They used to do Origin quite well.
Yeah.
But, we'd need to talk to Alan Liu about how he did it and just see if we could get, the right kind of software in place just to make sure it crashed right at the most important part. Now, how does it feel to have become a gay icon almost overnight? Like Convicts, was that the footy team down Sydney, the gay one?
Yeah.
Like
I think
some of your comments early on about marriage equality and obviously calling out the homophobia on field kind of brought you to a lot of people's attention, brought a lot of people, created a lot of new supporters for the Wallabies and any team you were playing on, I guess. How does it feel to have become a gay icon? Do you get invited to like Mardi Gras and stuff now?
Well, living in Canberra, I still haven't got to Mardi Gras.
Yeah.
I think making sport more inclusive is important.
Mm-hmm.
And as an immigrant who moved to Australia in my awkward kind of high school, grade 9 years, sport was definitely the place where I felt like I was part of something and was just, someone on the team, and there wasn't that sort of barrier of not feeling like you belonged or fitted in. And then comparing my experiences as a white Zimbabwean who moved here to a mate who's a black Zimbabwean, he had a very different experience of that because he was black.
Yep.
And then obviously you throw a different sexual orientation. It's you're also being discriminated against because of who you are.
Yep.
And I think sport is at its best when it's actually challenging society to be more inclusive. And, if you want a more inclusive society, if you think that's a good thing, then I think we need to be doing that at home and in our workplaces. And I guess for me, that's rugby. So, it's led to some great conversations, some difficult conversations. And I think it's something that the tide has turned on, and a lot of it is now down to education, because most people, when you can actually see how your language affects other people negatively, you want to change it. You want people to feel like they can be themselves, and it's something that's been important to me. That the incident in the game actually that did rock me a little bit, because there were a whole bunch of guys in the team. We talked about it as a team, saying like, we want to try and create an environment where people feel like they can be themselves.
Yep.
And we talked about homophobia. And so when that happened in the game, there were a bunch of players who went to the ref and said, listen, we're not happy with these homophobic slurs. And some people in the media made it out as if I was kind of driving my agenda through it. Through using the game or
You're
whatever.
the only one who said it.
Not the only one who said it.
Yeah, right.
So after that, it's...
They got you on the video ref too.
There's evidence.
Well, I suppose it is the onus of every editor of every newspaper around the world is to get the most clicks these days, and I'm afraid that we're no different from time to time, I suppose.
Clickbait.
So a couple of weeks ago, you played the Tars, I believe, down there in Sydney. But after the World Cup, you're heading back to Japan. That's right, to complete your contract.
Yeah, I'm going to head over there 2020.
You reckon you'll stay, or do you reckon you'll make your way back to the Brumbies after that?
Oh, mate, it feels like a long way. It feels like such a long way off. Getting on. So who knows?
We'll get a season out of the Cowboys or something crazy like that. We're going to play Rabbitohs.
I don't know. We'll see. I don't think so. But we'll wait and see.
You could be like the next Brad Thorne, Now, we're just finishing up here. You've got a lot going on. You're activist, footballer, gay icon, philanthropist, I guess, of sorts, charity operator. Tell us a bit about this stuff. Is this you?
No, so this is a couple of mates in Canberra.
Barbell Biltong.
Yeah, so they've started this up, and it's I reckon it's the best biltong I've had in Australia, doing it really well. And they have just teamed up with the Savoury Institute and a thing called Land to Markets. So trying to actually allow consumers to buy product that is being farmed in a regenerative way. Like on the drive out here, like some of the land is pretty degraded, and there's a lot of erosion. And I think in Australia we've got some world leaders in regenerative agriculture.
They put a chain between tractors, bit of Sir Joe style land clearing.
We won't get into that.
A little bit of anchor chain in between two sort of D6s never. As I think that type of farming's opened up a lot of country for organic beef, as they would say. Down there in the cosmopolitan southeast, they would say that.
Yeah. So they're doing some really good things, and I think more and more consumers want products that are grown in a way that, one, is giving the animal the best possible life, but is also grown in a way that's not detrimental to the environment.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think in Australia we have some world leaders in regenerative agriculture. Charles Massey, Colin Seiss, a whole bunch of people. And I mean, I didn't realise, but Aboriginal people have been farming for tens of thousands of years. It's probably one of the oldest farming cultures in the world.
Yeah.
So we've got plenty that we can learn from, and
The boys in gold are playing the All Blacks down in Sydney out at Parramatta, Homebush. Your Super Rugby season's over, so you've just been hitting the rack on team runs, just getting bigger, getting faster, getting stronger.
Hitting the weights rack, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, what the fuck? Yeah, I'm glad.
That's what I meant.
I guess it's a bit of a pre-season type vibe where you're not playing, but you're trying to keep fit. And it's a huge challenge for us. Yeah, they're obviously number one team in the world, have been for a long time, and it's an exciting challenge. You want to be playing against the best and testing yourself. So, a couple of weeks to prepare once the Tars are back with us, and we'll see how we go.
Well, we wish you all the best. We're loving having you back. Bit of momentum behind the guys. Let's see if you can bring it home.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, mate.
Cheers, guys.
See you, mate.
Now get back to training. What are you doing in Western Queensland?
All right, and that was David Pocock. He's just about to show down against the old foe from across the Dutch. They're playing the All Blacks in Sydney on the 18th of August. So get on down there if you live in the harbour capital. Put on your Wallabies scarf, your RM Williams boots. Be sure not to polish them too, because that gives you extra street cred, I've heard down there.
Yes, and if we're lucky, or if he's lucky, David could be captain in the near future, providing the Australian Rugby Union commentators, mostly three-cap world beaters that work for the Sydney Morning Herald, unless they have something to say about it, which I'm sure they will. Living in the glory days there, and I'm not specifically talking about you, Greg Martin, but I actually am.
Well, they just signed Hoops to another big deal. I think it's 5 years in it, a couple of tens of millions of dollars. So I think if David wants that captaincy back, he'll have to fight Hoops to the death.
Something I'm sure he's capable of, as we learned today. He's a man of great strength and a man of great willpower. That's it for this week. I'm Clancy Overall. You be kind to each other.
And my name is Errol Parker. Don't talk to the police unless you've got legal counsel present.